Okay. The purpose of this meeting basically is to get all the candidates that are running for city council and for mayor to unite behind a Get Money Out of Politics campaign, and to hopefully provide real representation for the citizens of Albuquerque. So I'm going to quickly get this going. We're probably going to, since we only have about 4 or 5 candidates right now, give everybody about 5 minutes to get up and identify themselves, who they're here in behalf for, which district seats they're running for, and just some basic biographical introduction. So I'll start it off asking Ray Gardino to get up here. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. I'm here representing Monsanto and no. Just wanted to see if you folks were awake or not. It's always nice to be here. Many occasions I've had the pleasure to speak to folks. I feel like I'm amongst friends. That's not always the case. Sometimes Ike and I, when we're at City Council, don't feel like we're amongst strings, because it's tilted in a way we don't like. Beyond that, let me tell you that I think there's a clear difference between the 3 folks that are running for mayor this year. Richard Berry came in with a lot of promises about being open to ideas, open to things that would help the city. And he has gone exactly the opposite way. He's very egocentric, he's very self-centered, but worse than that, he has no center. He abides by what the apparatus at the Republican Party, and probably worse, the right-hand side of the Republican Party does. But enough about the bad guys. Let me tell you about Pete Danelli. Pete and I had occasion to work together when he was Director of Public Safety and I as a counselor. Many cases we argued about and thought about and wondered what we should do about them. A lot of them were nuisance abatement. You may remember that a lot of the, especially in my district, District 6, there were a lot of hotels, other abandoned properties that were just a nuisance. And fortunately, we had an ordinance that allowed the public safety director to take care of those. And many were. Many were found out of code, subsequently tagged, as it's said, a red tag put on, and then ultimately raised. But now, I think if we get him back, we can start looking at all of those things that we did then and go to the next step, which is vitalize them, make sure that those areas are taken care of. And I think he's ready for that. Will he be able to do it alone? No. But he's a great beginning. The other way he's going to be able to accomplish all those things is to have great colleagues on the council, like Isaac Benton, myself, Lovey McGee, Diane Gibson, and continue with Ken Sanchez, and hopefully we can flip some of the other. I don't know that we can take over 5, or, well, 4 and 8 aren't up. But Pete will listen to us. He is not such an ideologue that he will not move at least an inch to accomplish some of the things that we want. Some of the things that have been proposed, like ABQ, the plan, sound wonderful, but they don't take care of some of the basic issues and basic needs of this city. And I think Pete will. Pete, and I should have started by saying that he wanted to be here, obviously, but he was called on some other business, was not able to, and he asked me if I would speak on his behalf, and I'm glad to do that. Without further ado, I think we'll go to the next person. I don't know, Tom, if you wanted to go in a certain way or not. Thank you. Yes, in fact, yes, thank you. He will be the only Democrat because Margaret Aragon de Chavez has dropped out and in fact has endorsed Pete Dinelli. So now there are two Republicans, Barry and Hay, the other Republican. So even a better reason to go out in mass and support Pete. Thanks. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much, Ray. Ken Sanchez was invited here. He's known about this for about 2 weeks, and he expresses deep regret that he can't be here. He was called away on a family emergency last night. I'm going to turn this over to Councilor Ike Benton, running for re-election, and I hope I get this right, in District 2.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks to Move to Amend for inviting me here today. I think your effort is very much aligned with some of the concerns that Ray expressed and that I share about our city government. I've really made, although I've never been a real hard-boiled party guy. In fact, I was a Green Party member for as long as I've been a Democrat. But I have noticed under the most recent administration a sharp turn towards partisanship in city government. That even though in the past everyone understood who was on which side of the aisle and who, what party the mayor came from, the atmosphere was much more collaborative and really crossed party lines regularly in the previous mayoral administration. Many of us on the Democrat side would oppose Mayor Chavez on some of his initiatives and support him on others, and then vice versa for the Republican councilors. There's been a sharp turn. There's a lot of speculation about where it all came from and why it's happening, but I think we all know that on the national level, it's been more and more divided, more and more rigid positioning. And what we've seen, I think, in New Mexico, and I think it's pretty clear, is an effort by the Republican Party to reach down, all the way down to the city council level. I was surprised just 4 years ago when I was running amongst my fellow councilors to be president of the council, that one of the Republican councilors said to me, the state party is really trying to prevent you from being council president. I'm going, wow, this really is reaching down to a level that we haven't seen before, yes. So this was an offhanded comment, but it indicated to me the level to which they're really looking at the most grassroots races and the most grassroots issues and injecting partisanship into it. And I really do condemn that, and I think we all should at the city level. Our city government was intended to be nonpartisan, and maybe that was naive, but
in the state constitution.
Well, the city charter, when it was rewritten in the 70s under then City Commissioner Domenici and others, was intentionally made this way. And I always joke around and say a pothole is not partisan. We're here to provide the most basic services, the most basic needs. We're the most low to the ground, direct connection to the community, and so it's reprehensible. And I want to give some credit to my predecessor on the city council, Eric Griego, who spearheaded the public financing open and ethical campaign bill, which provides for public financing in New Mexico. And I was interviewed by a national reporter a year or two back, and they were very focused on what a great system we developed here for open and ethical campaigns. And we do have a great, very, very progressive system. However, having said that, and I'm utilizing that system, and during the month of May, I'm going to have to collect $475 contributions. So if anybody wants to sign up and get a book and try to get up to 10 contributions, that would be very much appreciated. That is our requirement to qualify during the month of May. Yes, for my district alone, it's $470, $5 contribution to prove that we have enough basic support to receive public financing. And those $5 contributions, by the way, don't go to me in my campaign. They go into the fund. But it's a means of testing seriousness of candidates to qualify. So that's an effort that we'll be conducting during the month of May. And but I want to say a little bit about the campaign financing system. The original law, the original city law that provided for public financing of campaigns actually said that if there were an independent expenditure that was made against you, in other words, outside PAC type group came in and did, let's say, a critical mailing against you. And you know, we all know about PACs and what they're there for. They're there to make the candidate look clean and above the tide, and then you can hit the opponent. You can hit your opponent really hard by an independent expenditure. Well, in the previous system, up prior to Citizens United, we would receive matching funds for a independent expenditure against us. That, because of the ruling, is no longer the case. So I'm going to be totally public finance. If my opponent, we're not sure what she's going to be doing, but if she were to be privately financed, or either way, if an independent expenditure is made against me, I will not receive any additional funds to counteract that. We just have to do it with the funds that are made available. So, I mean, that's one little example about how this ruling has reached down and really affected our own, still a good system, but formerly excellent system, now less excellent.
The Republican Party did that, didn't it?
Well,
To do that.
well, I think, you know, the experts from Move to Amend probably talk about all this, but yeah, obviously it was a coordinated effort to bring that to the Supreme Court eventually. So anyway, this would be my third term if I'm elected. I was elected for twice now, and by pretty good margins in our old district, which includes the university area. But since redistricting, old District 3, which I was elected to represent, and District 2, which is most of the North Valley and north of the North Valley, were melded together into one district. We basically, it was a discriminatory redistricting effort that was, of course, led by the Republican majority and signed by Mayor Berry to lessen the number of Democratic districts. And they were successful. If you're interested in this, there's still a lawsuit underway in federal court by LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens. The local group is called ABQ Fair Redistricting. So if you want to go check out their website, contribute to that campaign, it would be very much appreciated. And that lawsuit is still moving forward. If it were to somehow prevail, I think we'd have to all be running again. But that's okay by me, because it would correct a real injustice that was done. And that lawsuit, there are many reasons why it was a terrible thing to do to combine our Center City district with the North Valley district, with totally different types of areas. But the reason for that lawsuit is discrimination against minorities, particularly Hispanics, when you just look at the numbers of what was done in the redistricting. And they're confident that they have a very good case in court. They've got a good set of lawyers from San Antonio
Who were successful there.
who have done very well against Governor Perry in Texas and the Texas State Legislature. So something to think about as well. But I very much support your effort and want to hear from you. And we will do all we can at the city level to express, to help you give voice to your effort. So thanks.
But when can you take seed money?
Taking seed money now, however, seed money is kind of not that particularly useful anymore because it comes off the top of what we'll get for
But it lets you
public.
print literature to use while you're
Yeah,
printing signatures and stuff.
and you can get on our website, contribute seed money if you like. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ike, and we will be taking individual questions later. I'm very happy that we have at least 4 candidates or representatives here. This is a little bit slipshod organization. We do plan another forum like this in the future, and hopefully the candidates will double in numbers. And the purpose of this, again, is to introduce these candidates to the community and get as much support as we can, as early as we can, behind them. And one of our new candidates on the local political scene, running for District 9, is Levy McGee, and she'll speak to you now.
Well, what can I say? I am Lovey McGee, running for District 9. My district is south of Manal, east of Eubank. And I say south of Manal all the way to Kirtland Nuclear Site, all the way east to the mountains. And if anybody live there, I need some signatures, basically, because I need 500 to get on the ballot, but just in case they throw some out, I need 700 to be sure and make sure. But I am running for City Council for several reasons. And one of the main reasons is public safety. Another reason is the money that is being spent from our administration, the mayor's office. I just cannot understand spending millions of dollars for bike trails, $40 million or more for sports complex, when you have people that's suffering and he's outsourcing jobs and trying to get rid of the unions. I don't understand the rationale behind it. And if he was a mayor who cared anything about the city, seemed like he will funnel that money to where it's more needed than a bike trail or a sports complex. We have places where you can play football and basketball, and I think we don't need another sports complex. Another thing is first responders. They cut first responders a salary about 8% and making them pay part of their own insurance. Another thing I don't understand is safety. Safety is my number one issue here. Because if we don't have safety, if we can't go home and be safe, what do we have? And if we let the police officers get by with what they get by with, what is that saying to us and our children? That they're better than us? That they're above the law? And that is something I truly do not like. And that is my pet peeve. I feel like safety should be our number one issue. If you live here in this city, then you should make every effort possible to make us safe and to allow the things that's going on, evidence being destroyed, people getting off the hook. Some people get punished and others don't. And that is my number one issue there. Education is another one of my pet peeves, which I know the City Council don't have a lot to do, but I know that there is some money and there are some decisions that we can make as far as education is concerned. And I'm saying that if we cannot invest in our children, who can we invest in? And that's pretty much it. And so here again, it's District 9 that I'm running for, and I too need signatures to even get on the ballot. I too am going for public funding. And so I need the $5 as well. So I'll take her questions later. Okay.
Thank you, Levy. And next up is Peggy Wallace, representing Diane Gibson in District 7.
Well, I'll reassure you again, I'm not running for office, in case you didn't want to vote for me. Okay, anyway, I talked to her this morning, she's not well, but she gave me a couple of points. One is that our district fortunately benefited a little bit from redistricting. And now there's 16, I don't know what it was before, but there's 16% more Democrats in the area than Republicans. So we really maybe have a chance if we get out and work. 7, it's uptown. It's sort of spread out. It's
North of Lomas, east of Carlisle, more or less, to Eubank, and north of Montgomery.
It has nice tidy borders, no way. Yes.
Basically, the oldest part of the
and well, one of the things she's. Oh, I'm glad you did.
There's a map on our website.
And I missed the meeting where the third Thursday meeting where they handed out the map. So, but anyway, one of the things she is really upset about right now is that Janice Arnold Jones, who was appointed to replace Michael Cook, the bad driver, the drunken driver, just voted against support of. My mind is really bad. I mean, it is deteriorating. About guns, having the city do the repurchasing of the guns. Okay. And then, also on this issue, she would be happy to support another something in the city council about move to amend. No.
Oh, Diane would.
Yeah.
Diane would support that. And she and I spoke, you're right.
Sponsor. I'm sorry. I really am, my mind gets worse and worse. So anyway, if any of you are from District 7, let me know, please, so I can get money from, so when the time comes, we can get money from you to help her run. Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. Levy McGee would like to add one more comment about Diane Gibson.
Diane is sick in bed. Diane is a wonderful lady. I know Diane will carry the voice of the people. I know Diane will fight for the people. It is unfortunate that she is not here. But I will stand with Diane, and because I know where her heart is, just like mine. And if you all didn't quite, understand, I wanted to make it perfectly clear that she is a fighter, she's an advocate, and she will do a good job on the council.
Thank you. And thank you, Peggy, for being so brave to come up here. There is some saying, I probably have it wrong, but it's better to speak out with a shaky voice than to not speak out at all. And we had 4 topic questions, but it looks like the candidates have addressed the first 2, which is about representing the people and getting as much money out of politics in our election system as possible. We're going to do, so now we're down to 2 topic questions, and then we'll turn over questions to the audience. I think one of the main overall issues that the Peace and Justice Center community is interested in is sustainable communities working together, communities starting local industries, getting off corporate dependency, revitalizing our local economy, and being involved with green energy and green fuel efforts. I'd like the candidates to spend about two or 3 minutes addressing that, and then I'll be back with a second topic question. Ray, please, first.
Well, we've been handed a microphone, so I guess you wanted us to sit? Is that the point here? Well, I, for one, and with the help of the council, passed what was called the Growers Market Initiative, and then the other one was community gardens. So that gives you an idea of what some of the thinking is that I think we can do. Many jobs have been created because of community gardens. We now have, last count, about 15 gardens that are essentially selling their produce that before had a hard time. And one of the reasons they had a hard time is that whenever you went to a market, you had a lot of people that were bringing in produce from other parts of the country, maybe even further. And you had a hard time competing. And one of the issues then was, what do we do? So we made it a grower's market. And so you have to grow your produce in order to sell it. Now, what does that mean, really? It means that I think it gives impetus for folks to be able to grow their own produce, sell their own produce, and have some level of profit from that. Pete Danelli, at one point we were talking, this is at the very beginning, when we were looking at community gardens as a concept, looking at growers markets as another concept, and we agreed that this is one of the areas that I think we can grow an economic base, if you will. Is that all we can do to make this a viable city? Absolutely not. There are a lot of things that need to happen. Pete Danelli, when he was public safety director, I think talked a lot about how do we make it easier for companies to prosper, especially homegrown, local businesses. And that's one of the things that he looked at very closely. I remember when Tulin Market was having a hard time with, it was called the Spruce Bar, I think it was called, or Spruce, Blue Spruce nightclub. And you know, there was a lot of commotion, let's call it, but a lot of fearful folks would not go to Tulin Market because it was just a dangerous place to go to. And he was a real advocate for making sure that areas were safe. And so he proceeded, some people thought maybe a little too aggressively, but he proceeded to make sure that the Blue Spruce no longer existed. As you now know, it is an empty lot that is being looked at by, in fact, the Limray family to develop. So are things quick to turn around? No, but I think, as was mentioned by Tom, those are the kinds of things that we can do to make sure that our city becomes a better place to live. You can hope to get a lot of intels and those type of places to come in. I think we waste a lot of time talking about that even. I think we need to make sure that either existing small businesses or other folks that want to become business owners have a place that they feel safe at, that they can then grow their own businesses. So those are the kinds of things that, and I don't know, are we taking questions? Somebody has to. Sure. Yes. Oh, the process of having a market before before growers markets, they were vendors markets. So
You
people.
changed, you're talking about a whole bunch of them.
Right.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh.
Okay, I was just trying to find out what establishment you were talking about when you changed it to a grower's market.
Before they were open markets, if you will, and one of the reasons that we made sure they became growers markets, as I said, is so that people that grew their produce sold their produce there. Before that, there were folks who were selling pineapples and bananas, and there's, you know, I like pineapples and bananas, but I don't know of any place that is growing them locally. So that was a clue to me. But thank you for the question.
Did you have a question?
I guess, in terms of some of the kind of community-driven efforts that I've been part of, I'd highlight a couple of them. One is the South Yale Metropolitan Redevelopment Area, which I share with Councilor Garduno. And when I first came on the council, it was Councilor Heinrich. And Councilor Heinrich and I were approached by neighbors in that area of South Yale, essentially. South Yale, which includes Clayton Heights and the Kirtland neighborhood and the Victory Hills neighborhood, about doing something about Yale and making it a place that would support the kind of local business that Ray and I support and that we all want to see more of. So when we talk about metropolitan redevelopment areas, the old District 3, to which I was elected twice, really contains the majority of the MR areas in the city. And these are areas that are acknowledged to be in need of a boost to support a stronger economy and a more neighborhood-based economy that actually serves the neighborhoods that surround them. So I think everybody knows Yale if you've driven that way to the airport or out of the airport before, but that southern part of Yale is sort of there's some motels that have gone in that serve the airport and some chain restaurants, but otherwise it's largely undeveloped. And that's an effort that we've moved forward with, Ray and I, after Martin Heinrich moved on to bigger things. But we've worked with that, and this kind of work really involves a lot of community outreach. It really involves multiple meetings of hearing from people and hearing what their vision is, and then trying to bring those to reality. We're looking at another one for West Central between Old Town and the Biopark. Everyone loves Old Town, everyone loves the Biopark, but the stretch of Central between those two is not the nicest place for the neighborhoods or for a tourist or for anyone, except maybe a commuter that wants to drive through at high speeds. So those MR efforts are something that are dear to my heart. Another thing that now Senator Heinrich and I worked together on was a green building code for Albuquerque. And if any of you saw Channel 5 last night, Gene Grant's show, they had Edward Mazary on there pointing out that of our carbon emissions, more than half come from buildings. And Ed Mazria, who's an old mentor of mine from way back when I first worked at the Design and Planning Assistance Center right over here at UNM, issued this challenge. And he's a widely recognized solar expert. He issued a challenge to architects to, over the next 30 years, to reduce building emissions by 50%. Well, Councilors Cadigan and Heinrich and I sponsored a green building code for the city that we got passed back in the previous administration. Thank you. And it was one of the most forward-looking, I say was, and I'll explain that, forward-looking building codes in the country. It was very user-friendly. It was written by a brilliant code expert who we used to have working for us in the city. Under this administration, that was overturned and repealed. So, this... It was the best.
Was.
So it's, again, when we're talking about the cynicism of, deregulation of everything, of turning back the clock on any advancement, this is the reason why we've all got to be involved in local government. And this is the reason why we've got to get money out of politics. The two groups, and I'll get to your question in just a second, but I wanted to make one more point about that. The two groups that carried the water on the repeal and that lobbied and ensured that the repeal went through are, one is called the National Association of Industrial and Office Properties, NAOP. This is one of the most powerful lobbies in the country, but especially in Albuquerque. These are the sprawl real estate developers. They were in conjunction with the sprawl home builders. Not talking about the little guys like myself and my dad that build one-off houses and try to just provide, passive solar, nice homes for people, but the tract home builders that had an economic interest in the sprawl of the west side and the northeast heights that is harming our center city and that's sucking the blood out of Albuquerque. Those same people and those same industries, which, by the way, we all know, along with the banking industry, were responsible for the depression that we're in now. These are the people who killed that code. They also repealed our impact fee ordinance. That's a whole nother sad story of something that was done before my time on the council that they came in and had just recently gutted. That story appeared on the Albuquerque Journal on page B4 or something like that. I mean, you know, it was one of the most important stories in the last 10 years on the city council, and it appeared on page B4. There's a lady in the back.
I vaguely remember way back when Richardson was having a lot of public meetings on such things as the Green Building Code. And a lot of divergent people met there to draw up all these plans. Was that something that was just like, we would love to do this, or was there no law behind it at all?
That effort, and that's a good question because it's related to something
I just never knew what happened to all of that.
Yeah, that was also passed. So that was kind of a parallel effort at the state level. And under the Richardson administration, they did strengthen the state building code as well along similar lines. They didn't go quite as far as the Albuquerque code did, but the statewide building code. And the way it works is a municipality like Albuquerque can pass its own code. And if you don't have your own code, you use the state code for building. And they did go through, as you say, a very long process. There was a lot of public testimony, a lot of input from the building industry. Everybody got their fair say. And they passed a stronger building code. Well, as soon as Governor Martinez came in, she appointed a new construction industries commission, and they killed that one. That's presently being challenged by the Sierra Club and the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project, with whom we worked on our code, in court. And that's been in the paper. Just right now, it's ongoing court case with regard to the failure to have due process in the removal of that code. So you take a code that was enacted like ours through months and years of work, and repeal it in 1 week because you appointed a new commission. Yes, ma'am.
Here you go.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I guess similarly, there was a plan that was originated by Martin Chavez with the about climate change and actions that we could take in all these different segments. And I remember, because a number of us were part of a group that went and saw or heard the city council accept the plan. And then it seemed to disappear into some dark hole someplace. And I'm just wondering, I mean, it does make citizens feel like they do all this work for nothing, and just to have something like that disappear. So do you ever hear of that plan anymore? Are there little departments in the city working on that? Or is it reappearing under a different name? What's happened?
The short answer is in this administration is no, but I'll let Ray speak to that.
And the planned growth strategy, is that what you're referring to?
Climate change.
Oh, climate change, right. In fact, right. And it was a great effort. And you're right that there was, again, not unlike what Councilor Ben has alluded to with building codes and other things that happened. It was law. Now, interestingly, there hasn't been an effort to undo it, but you're right, it has gone into the catacombs of the city. Some people are working on it, but it's not an effort that we thought it would become. I was not a councilor at the time, but I had great hopes that Albuquerque would become one of those cities that would look at these things and be serious about it. Well, it's become, as you say, a hidden secret that the city could utilize, could be part of, and I think become a leader in this country with emissions and other things. In fact, Mayor Chavez, after he left the mayorship, ended up being on a national, in fact, I think he headed a national effort and organization as their CEO. So there was recognition that we were going in the right direction, but regrettably, under this administration, that is, not even a discussable issue. And one of the unfortunate things is that we as legislators, we pass legislation, but we don't have the power to implement it necessarily because it's an executive duty. And if the executive or administrative branch does not want to do it, they can just drag their feet forever. I mean, there are things that, and Councilor Breton, I think, will tell you this also, things that we just know are needed, are provable, that there'd be a good thing to do, and this administration just will not move on it. Is it cynicism? Is it because they're bad guys? 80% probably true, that they do not want to move in that direction because what they want to do is ABQ the plan and do a lot of things that have nothing to do with what would be the best thing for the city. You had some more?
Well, just the one part of that is that I understand there's a tax or like a 1% something or another that goes into a fund for these projects. And I mean, certainly it doesn't appear in the journal, but anywhere. I mean, is anything happening with the departments in terms of taking this money? I know they're supposed to submit grant, ask for, come up with projects and then get approval for those projects.
Right, and you're absolutely right. I'm going to let Councilor Benton speak to this because he was part of it also. So here's Councilor Benton.
Yeah, when another small thing, or I think it could be a big thing still, that I did after I got on the council in my first term was amend and exist. We had a 1% of our capital budget. In other words, every time we vote for our capital bonds, there was already an existing 1% that went to energy conservation. And I amended that through the city council, and it was signed by Mayor Chavez to change that to 3% and add the word renewables to it. So it changed it to, it can be used for either or both. And that's for city capital facilities. So that is being used. And that's a situation where if you give them some money and you make clear what it's for, you hope that they will at least spend the money. And in this case, they are doing that. They are putting energy efficient lighting in our city buildings. That's been an ongoing, that's not a very sexy project, but ongoing changeover of the city buildings and putting light colored, low albedo roofs on our buildings so that the summer heat load is not so heavy. A lot of things like that. And also, for instance, the Sunport parking structure has quite a big solar array on it now. That's all renewables that were done under that. So, it's not that they're able to just stonewall everything, but in a situation like that where we make it clear, well, if the voters make it clear we want this money spent, then it's pretty hard for them to not spend the money. Now they can, as Councilor Gardino said, drag their feet on other things, depending on what it is. So, all right.
Oh, I had a question.
One more question, I guess. But
Me.
should we want to let the other people speak and
Yeah, I'm going to give this over to Lovey in a minute. Thank you very much. Oh, you've got your own microphone. Okay, thank you very much. I think you've answered those issues quite succinctly. And we could probably devote an entire forum to that issue, as well as something like the Paseo del Norte issue. Lovey, your views and maybe Diane's views on these environmental and local issues?
Okay, and since Lovey knows Diane better than I, yeah.
two candidates at once.
Yes, well, now, hey. The only thing I can say about the environmental, I am a real estate agent and so a broker, and going green is the only thing I know, because that's the way, hopefully, that we're going, especially in houses and things like that. But as far as the buildings, new construction in buildings I am not educated on the buildings, but I will be. Asked me about the houses. Yeah, we have all kinds of codes, and when we know it's an important issue of the people nowadays. And so this is what, as a realtor, this is what we try to do, is accommodate the people and going green. And I know Diane has the same views that I do. She is a person who, whatever is going to help the people, we believe in we the people. That's what we keep saying, we the people. And it's not I, me, like the administration is now. So that's it.
Thanks, Levy. If you want to hold on to the mic, maybe for the last question, we'll go back in this order, in reverse order. The last question has to do with a very heated issue lately that involves the revamping of the Police Oversight Committee and addressing any corruption within the Albuquerque Police Department, and your reaction to the presence and the impact and hopefully success of the Department of Justice being in town recently.
Wow. I am happy that an investigation is going to take place. It should have taken place a long time ago, because all I can see is if the people who are supposed to protect us is above the law, they can slam us, but when it comes to them, they can get by with it. And as a person on the city council, whatever powers that we have of not allowing them to get by with what I call murder, they will not. And I pray, God, that the investigation can prove that they've been negligent in doing what they were supposed to have been doing. And not only if they are, they get punished for doing what they've been doing. It's punishment that they've been getting by with. And they don't need a slap on the wrist or a slap on the hand. They need to get what they give to us, and that is justice. And Diane, I believe Diane feels the same way.
Well, with regard to the Department of Justice investigation, we did conduct a vote before they came in of the City Council, and 5 city councilors voted to request a DOJ investigation. And the 4 Democrats at the time were down now to 3. But the 4 Democrats at the time were joined by now Council President Dan Lewis in calling for that. That bill was vetoed by Mayor Berry, and we didn't have the votes to overturn it. So, I mean, we had the opportunity to move forward on this some time ago. And again, you know, you've got, it surprises me sometimes when progressives come up to me and they go, wasn't Berry a pretty good guy? Hasn't he done a pretty good job? And you know, Marty Chavez was a cantankerous little guy and wasn't that great, and isn't Berry better? And I go, you know, let's set aside people's personalities and whether they're a nice person or not. And could you tell me one thing that Mayor Berry's done that you like? You know, there's only one thing I can think of. I mean, I think his Albuquerque Heading Home homeless program's pretty good. It could stand some improvement, but it's a pretty good start. Other than that, I can't think of one thing. He came right out of the chute, putting the immigration and naturalization, putting the migrant out at the jail. So if I'm an undocumented person and I spit on the sidewalk, guess what? I'm being shipped home, whether I'm proven guilty or not. That was one of the first things he did under his public safety officer, Darren White. So, you know, we look at this, and he has stood behind Chief Schultz and thwarted criticism at every turn of Chief Schultz. I believe Councilor Gardino was out of town, but Councilor Sanchez and I came out and called for his removal. You know, these guys are really not, you know, I don't want to publicly just come out and say they're covering up for them, but they're certainly covering them. You know, they're certainly covering the failure of leadership. Now under 2 administrations, we've got one chief that's been under 2 administrations, and the problems have continued. So the chief is a big part of the problem, and he may be a nice person too, but his leadership has been abysmal, and it's time for him to go.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you, Councilor Benton. I had the good fortune of presenting the resolution that asked for the DOJ to come in. And that was not because I was so prescient or that I knew everything. I spoke long hours with families who had lost loved ones, mostly Chicano young men.
Color. Just say it.
Absolutely.
People of color.
Chicano young men. And they were all, in some cases, they had either a disability or somehow were going through an episode that could have been, I think, handled very differently. But instead, we had a mentality within that system that thought that one of the ways to deal with a disability, with a mental illness, was to kill them because they were a danger. That was their mindset. So in presenting that DOJ investigation resolution, and as Councilor Benton said, it passed the council. The cynical part of me is that they knew that the mayor was going to veto it, and they also knew, just plain math, that we wouldn't be able to override it. We then later passed a resolution that encouraged the administration to work with the DOJ if they came in. Well, fortunately, the families and other activists like yourselves made sure that DOJ came in. They are here now. What the outcome will be, I don't know, but I can tell you one thing. One telling thing is that if we don't have that come out and make sure that our police department, I want to be very clear here, the police department conducts itself in a way that is a benefit to the city. I think it says on their cars, to protect and defend or something like that. They're not doing that right now. But I also want to be very clear that there are a whole lot of very good police officers. But it's a department, and the top part of that department that I think is off kilter. It does not know the difference between a citizen who is trying to live his life or her life normally and someone who is having an episode. And I'm glad that someone in the back pointed out that it's also telling that the folks who have been murdered have a predictable, excuse me, a predictable part of their appearance, and that is their skin. And that's unfortunate, because all that can do is lead you to think that there's something else going on besides what they present. Pete Donnelly, when he was public safety director, did not have the same mentality. He went after folks, but he made sure that they were the folks that we needed to get off the street and deal with. He worked very closely with Matt's, which is the Metropolitan Alcohol and Treatment Services, down on Zuni and San Pablo, I think, San Mateo. Those are the kinds of things that we need to do. As a government, we need to look at what we can do to help our citizens. The first answer is not to kill them. I want to also point out that it's become, and it was, I think, under that public safety director, Darren White, where this mentality began. He's sort of a pretend, I don't know, soldier of action or something or other. And he used to love to wear all this stuff that made him look like some kind of, paratrooper. For the longest time, I used to make fun of his garb because he really thought, even though he was a civilian employee, thought he still was the sheriff in town. And that's unfortunate. That's the kind of thinking that I think puts a city at risk. And we are at risk right now. It's not ended. It still happens. And if we think that it's going to end just out of the kindness of these folks' heart, it won't. Elections have consequences. One of those consequences is that a mayor who is oblivious to this was elected. And he still thinks that the police are correct and all of those people deserve to have been killed because they were acting out, because they were whatever. Are there criminals out there? Absolutely. And that's what the police are supposed to take care of and apprehend and whatever needs to happen through a process. But certainly the first answer is not to kill them. Yes?
First a comment, then a question.
If you could wait for the microphone.
First a comment and then a question. I had an accidental occasion to meet the mayor, and in a very positive way. And I thought, well, good. And there was reason that he would remember that. And so I wrote him a letter and gave him at least a dozen or more personal incidents that I'd had with the police and why I was very interested in this investigation and so forth. And, you know, he had my email and he had my address, but he never responded at all. And but then the question is, I'd like a little rundown of the history of the Oversight Committee, police oversight, and be reminded how they got where, you know, how if they're all appointed or some are elected and some appointed, if it's the city council or if, you know, how that comes to be, because it's just been a dismal failure. And I've dealt with them too and been put, you know, I called them once because of something I saw and was very upset about and asked to speak to the Oversight Committee. And instead of speaking to one of them, they put me directly through the police and had the police call me. And it was the police I was disturbed about.
Right. Oh, that's one of the problems with the Police Oversight Commission. The POC, as it's well known, I did not appoint a person to that commission for 2 years while I was a counselor. 2 reasons. No one wanted to serve on it. It is a toothless mechanism that just listens to police tell you what they've done or excuses why they did it. And it's just sort of a whitewash. And I'll go on camera saying that. And I think it would have been, could be in the future, and Councilor Winter and I have a resolution, actually a change of ordinance, to make sure that the Police Oversight Commission works the way it's supposed to. But right now, it's a toothless mechanism. It is, you know, it's just sort of a hearing board. And who has the power in that situation? If you're a citizen, and in fact they're called CPCs, Citizens Police Complaints. Well, in that situation, if you're talking to the police, and the police and you are the people in front of this POC, who do you think this POC is going to listen to? Because of the imbalance of power. I have, for 5.5 years that I've been on the council, asked for detailed explanation of the reports that they put out. And it's all gobbledygook. You know, there is a replete reference to exonerations of every single police inaction or action that people have complained about. I can't believe that of 500 complaints, that every one of them have been superfluous or made up, or that the citizen was just out to get the police. It's just not true. I would imagine you would agree with me since you had that experience. We're hoping that the POC will change and will become a commission that will have a level of power, recommending or even making sure that it doesn't just sweep things under the rug. Right now, what happens is The complaint comes to them. They look at it, if you will, and then they say, okay, well, there's cause for this to be looked at further. Here, Chief Schultz, you take care of it. You know, what is that? So, Lovey, go ahead.
How did the commission get to that point? Who's appointing the people on this commission?
Wonderful question. Remember I said elections have consequences?
Oh, yeah.
Every counselor has the ability to name a representative. And like I said, for 2.5 years, I did not appoint a person. 2 reasons. I didn't think it was working that well, and when I would go into my district and say, there's an opening, would you like to serve on the police commission? To a person, they would, and I would talk to a lot of folks, they would say, no, thank you. It's not a commission that I want to be part of, and it's not a commission that's doing good work. So for that reason, to the question, all of us have the opportunity to name a representative. Well, some of the representatives probably represent the views of the counselor. And so if you have an imbalance of counselors where they think that the police do no wrong, then you're probably going to have representatives who also feel that way. So I think that the commission needs a thorough, I don't know, review for sure, but probably a change. And if it's not going to change, then don't play that game. Just get rid of it.
We're seeing now was the judge's decision, which really forced our district attorney, who happens to be a Democrat, by the way, but our district attorney's means of hearing these cases, which was in a kind of a, it was a grand jury, but it wasn't a grand jury. It was a very unusual setup that they had had over the last 25 years of the DA's approach to these cases, which had never, ever in all those decades found an officer at fault. So there's something, I mean, you know, maybe many of them weren't at fault, but that just doesn't wash. So that's something that's going to change, hopefully, along with the Police Oversight Commission.
What's the business about Pat Davis? Oh, I think Michelle's loud enough.
Here you go, Michelle.
I heard something about them complaining about Pat Davis lately. Was that commission? That he was a liberal and that wasn't allowed? He's an ex-cop. He's got a master's in criminal justice. He used to work for the DA. Do I have the right body?
Well, that was one of the places where I think I had asked him to serve on it.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't allow it because he was a past officer, I think, or sheriff.
Well, I thought it was too liberal because he's working for a nonprofit now.
Nobody would say that. But he had you know, some kind of law experience. And I think he was a deputy sheriff or something like that.
He was a UNM cop, and he was a District of Columbia cop, and he has a master's in criminal justice.
And that was funny because that was brought up when I asked him if he would serve. But that wasn't brought up when other police or retired police officers were asked to serve.
Thank you very much, everybody. Let me make a few quick announcements before we turn this over to general questions, because I know a few people have left already. People have to leave at about 12:30. I know Lovey needs to scoot off at about 12:30. I've been talking to National Move to Amend, and they're going to revamp our website, and they plan on bringing a huge barnstorming tour here in the fall, and I've made it very clear to them that they need to bring it here like in September before the October election, so we can further educate the public about how important it is to, from a grassroots to a state to a national level, to overturn the Citizens United decision. Also, you have a copy of our resolution, our brochure, and our business card. Please join Central New Mexico Move to Amend. Give us a call if you want to volunteer with us to set up a bigger candidates forum like this in a month or so. And make sure that you sign the sign-up list with your email and telephone number if you want to, and make sure that you sign the national petition if you haven't already. And now we'll open it up to general questions from the floor. Thank you.
I've got the mic, so. Two questions. Could you repeat again, Mr. Benton, the group, I'll call them lobbyists, that building group that was very active here in Albuquerque specifically, and that,
Yeah.
I don't know, there was an acronym or just the initials?
The acronym is NAIOP, N-A-I-O-P, and it stands for the National Association of Industrial and Office Properties. And they are a huge organization. If you go to their monthly meeting, which they conduct up at the Marriott, and every now and then I go just to kind of see what they're up to. And I'm looking forward to their debate that they always have a mayoral and council candidate debate, so I'm looking forward to that. They fill that room with 600 or so people every month, and these are some of the top politicians and business leaders in the community. It's not a lightweight group. There's a lot of money in that group, and they're very closely allied with the Home Builders Association of Central New Mexico.
Okay, so that would be a good place to ID who's aligned with whom, like you said.
Yes,
Okay.
and by the way, just for those who you might want to be motivated to help out a little bit with my campaign, my opponent, who was appointed by Mayor Berry upon the vacation of the seat by Councilor O'Malley to go to the county commission, my opponent was heavily lobbied for by NAIOP, and she's a executive board member of NAIOP.
Okay. Question number 2. Just some clarification about the public financing candidates with the $5 donation to get on the ballot. That $5 donation, I thought maybe wrongly, could be by anybody to get you on the ballot. You do not have to be in that counselor's district to make that donation or sign that petition.
Yeah, unfortunately it does. You do have to live in the district. So it's an indication of the support in the district. But in terms of volunteers, what we're going to be doing on our campaign starting on, we're going to have a kickoff at my house on May 4th in the morning, is May 1st we get our booklets. It's a booklet of 10 that receipts, and it's all got to be very well tracked, and with the voter's name and address, and then the person who collected the signatures. Little books of 10 coupons, and if you know people in the North Valley and you had some friends within the district, you could just work that. And we have maps of the district for everybody who needs to know, and I've got that here today. We will also be just using walk lists and going out and knocking on the doors of registered voters and asking for their $5 contribution. But yeah, it is, in the mayor's race, it's anyone, obviously, that's registered within the city limits, and but in the council race, it's by district.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Hi.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Let me just react to that for just a second. NAIOP, as Councilor Ben mentioned, is not only powerful, but it's embedded. Mayor Berry is a construction type guy. So he is, firmly tied to that. Trudy Jones was a realtor. I think she's retired now. But those are the kinds of things that happen when a powerful group like that puts up candidates. They have a great chance of being looked at because it is just that kind of power that moves, folks to vote. I don't know why, but we have the people. That should be enough to get us elected. But for some reason, money talks, and I don't know.
And I just wanted to make a statement in reference to that. The people who belong to groups like that don't take public financing because they support them. And if we as Democrats can support each other with your time, not necessarily the money, but there are many ways that we can support each other, and that's what we're asking for.
After watching the city council for a year or so, what I noticed is that the CAO seems to wield unbelievable power and kind of basically present things to the city council as a fait accompli. What is Pete Danelli going to do about that? And how will the city council be different? The CAO is the chief administrative officer of the city of Albuquerque. They work for the mayor. They are, I guess, appointed by the mayor. And they do not seem to have any sort of responsibility to the city itself, which I find very odd. So, that's my question.
Well, the question is well posed, and the answer is, no, that person is a representative of the mayor, should not have the power of the mayor. However, the present CAO does. And the reason for that, I think, is that there's complete acquiescence on the part of the mayor of any power that he should have. I have always been mystified, going way back. In fact, I think one of the few mayors that came to the meetings was Saavedra in the beginning. And then all of a sudden, he also went AWOL. And it's always now been the CAO who represents the mayor. And I think that's wrong. I think that the mayor is the person who should be there to answer the questions. Because this filter that has been put up is essentially telling the council, I don't have to listen to you. I have a surrogate that can just sort of say whatever they want, and if it's wrong, I can say, oh, well, you know, that was the CAO who said it, not me. Or if I want something strongly phrased, strongly worded, I can have my CAO say it and get it in. Mr. Perry and I go after each other almost at every meeting. I'm sure you've noticed that. And it's because of the disrespect that he has for the process. I don't care that he doesn't like me, but he should like his position, and he should know what his position is. The mayor should also know what his position is. He's an elected official like we are, and he should be at that table because he's the one that should be representing the city.
Thank you. Yeah, so what can we do about this?
Elect the correct mayor.
Or how can we keep the CAO from having any kind of wielding that kind of power?
Well, we, the council, doesn't have that kind of power because it's been sort of established for whatever reason for that to happen. I would like to, in the future, right away, when Pete Danelli gets in, essentially say to Pete, look, you know the process. You know what has to happen. Don't hide behind your CAO. Your CAO is your chief administrative officer. Let him do the administration that needs to happen. You come and do the job you were hired to do, and that is elected to be mayor.
A couple of things. Number one, there's a rubber stamp back there on the table I want to encourage people to use. It's a move to amend stamp. And it says you can stamp all your dollar bill or your bills if anybody has any money. It says not to be used for bribing politicians. So I stamp all my money, and it's a large stamp, so you really need to do it on the floor. It won't really work on the table. So I would encourage people to do that. The other thing I wanted to mention was Gary and I are 2/3, we're spies from the Occupy Las Lunas group. So 2/3 of us are present here in the meeting, so you can tell how puny it is. But one of the things that we're doing is I'm going after the Valencia County Commissioners, and there's 5 of them, and I've gotten all 5 to tell me directly that they would support this kind of resolution. So one possible, because you're having trouble in Albuquerque because it's too close to the money bribery, It might work if people have friends in all the various counties and stuff to go after it that way and end run around them. All 5 of them said that they would support it. The most negative thing I heard was, well, I don't think it would do any good. Well, okay, maybe it won't, but maybe it will, who knows? And it's been planned to be on the agenda June 5th, Valencia County Commissioners meeting to be voted on. And so it's possible, and one of the persons I met there at the last one is a city councilor from Berlin who's also on board. So I gave him the information. Hopefully he'll do it there as well. So a worthwhile effort might be to go to the smaller outlying areas that would have be less subject to the bribery that Albuquerque is more subject to. And you may be able to make more progress that way. That wasn't really a question mark, I guess, but just some comments to be.
When I presented this, as Tom will tell you, we worked very hard on this resolution. This was thought through by a lot of folks. Again, most of the time, for my part, and I think for Councilor Benton and other folks who are thoughtful, resolutions aren't just something that you sort of wake up one morning and say, you know what, this would be a great thing to present. There are things that are thought through, vetted by people who are doing the hard work on the ground. So I'm sure that's true in Berlin. But I think you're right that there is a critical mass that you have to build. Here, what happened, I think, with us is that there was a change right at the time where it went from 5-4 Democrats to 4-5 Democrats. And the resolution was received, but the main argument against it, after I presented it, was that, well, like you say, it won't do any good. Mm-hmm. It's a federal issue. Let Congress take care of it. Well, I think we need to start talking from this place, City Council, County Commission, whatever it takes to build that momentum and it's already there. I mean, move to amend. The whole Citizens United concept is a concept that the country understands and gets. It's now up to us, the governmental jurisdictions, to start catching up with folks. And once that happens, and I'm glad to hear that Move to Amend is coming here, hopefully in August or sometime when it can really put the issue up front, and so people can start talking about it and doing something about it. Because we need to. It is a terrible situation we're in. NAIA, as we were talking earlier, is one of those powerful things. But when this kind of thing can happen in a country, we have to be careful. We have to be real careful to say that a corporation has the same vitality, the same sanctity that life has. That's just sinful. It's terrible.
First comment, the Raging Grannies have a song that says corporations are not people, they can't have erections. But I wanted to ask if there's any possibility the City Council and the City of Albuquerque can do about Mesa del Sol before we have the joy of growing radioactive plants, animals, and children.
You talking about the mixed waste landfill? Well, the mixed waste landfill, I think it's now moved into Councilor Garduno's district now. But that, of course, is something that's existed for a very long time. It's somewhat analogous to the terrible fuel spill problem that we've got threatening our water, and another problem that's been foisted on Councilor Garduno's district by the military-industrial complex. And I just want to thank the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice for hosting this. It's a great organization. I need to make sure my dues are up to date, but I've been a longtime supporter of the Peace Center and working against. I mean, we've got to recognize. Diane Gibson is a Sandia retiree.
Yes.
And Sandia does some good work, let's be very clear.
I was talking about the solar research and things like that. Sandia does some great work, and that's what we need to be encouraging to go on there. But that particular environmental problem is certainly a place where, even though it's the federal government, yeah, the city council could weigh in there. We can't make the federal government do anything. But we're gonna get, I promise you, under this administration, the same response. Well, the city council it can't do anything about that. The city council shouldn't be passing a resolution supporting House Bill 77, which paralleled the gun registration laws. You know, these kind of efforts often go down to defeat. But as they say, it's not our purview. But the fact is, and I think with Move to Amend, I wanted to just, the point I wanted to make is, tie it back to how it affects Albuquerque. Tie it back to how it makes an unfair playing field all the way down to a city council race.
I'm sorry, I have to go, but I did want to put my last comment in. If there's anyone who live in District 9, please let me know. I have to go. We have a training at my house on how to get the petitions and how we're going to work it. So I cannot be late for my 1 o'clock meeting at my house. So we need your help. And sorry I have to leave, okay?
Any other questions? Michelle?
Here you go, Michelle.
I heard that the mayor cut the affordable housing budget, part of the latest city budget, from the usual $10 million to $2 million. Some of it was restored, but he cut it way back.
Yeah, you know, when we talk about working across party lines, Councilor Garduño and I have done that. We were able to restore some of that, and we had to do some pretty fast talking at that final council meeting to make it happen. But yeah, it went down from an average of 8 to 10 million every 2 years. Under his budget was way below 2 million. I think we've got it back up to the 3 million range now. We'll continue to work on that. But affordable housing and the construction of workforce housing has been one of the few things that's kept our construction industry going. And so these people that in the NAIOP and the home builders are crazy to not be aware that, I mean, they're voting against their own interests, but they're such large and centralized organizations that they're very good foot soldiers, and they always fall in line. For those of you who stick around, if you want to volunteer for the campaign, don't forget I've got a little sign-up sheet here.
That's right. Thank you all. This is the kind of thing that we need to do. And thank you, Tom, for putting this together, you folks. And hope we can do it again sometime soon. Pete Danelli has said he certainly will attend the next iteration of this.
Thank you very much, everybody who came. There's still tons of food over here, so please help us eat it. Enjoy yourselves tomorrow by coming out to La Montanita's Earth Day celebration. Peace and Justice Center will be there. Move to Amend will be there. We'll be selling these beautiful new 30th anniversary Peace and Justice Center t-shirts. And it's a lot of fun to network with environmental, like-minded groups, organic farmers, you name it. Bring the kids and have a very nice weekend.